Hi guys, I hope you're all well. I'm finally getting around to doing my February wrap-up video. How I record and everything, it can be a little bit of time between the actual end of the month and when my wrap-up goes up. I normally upload on a Friday, but lately that's not been happening either. I'm currently recording on my laptop. It's been a long time since I've recorded on a laptop, not since I had my old laptop, and then I've had upload issues where videos haven't processed properly after I've spent hours trying to upload them. So I thought I would try directly from this new computer and see if the quality improves. So I read 9 books in February. I was quite happy with myself for reading 9 books in February, particularly because the first book that I read in Feb was The Bronze Horseman by Paulina Simmons, which is an absolute beast of a book. I actually thought that this would take me most of February to read. I was prepared for it to take most of February, but it only ended up taking about a week to read. It was 637 pages, and this was a buddy read with myself and Rob from Rob's Reading Roundup. I have actually done a review of this on my channel, so if you'd like to sort of know more of my thoughts, definitely go check out that review. I did enjoy this, not more than I thought I would, because that sounds like I expected not to like the book, but it was a pleasant surprise, and I gave it 4 out of 5. All the other books were read on my Kindle. I don't know why, it wasn't intentional, it just seemed to happen. And the first 3 books that I read were all part of the same series. And the first book was Undeniable by Madeline Sheehan. See if you can see that. It's a bit of a glare, and excuse my absolutely filthy iPad. That's what that one looks like. And then book 3 is book 2 even is Unbeautifully. There. And book 3 is Unattainable. There. These were interesting. They are not romance reads. They say, you know, they're not love stories. They're kind of dark, and they're set around a motorcycle club, or 2 motorcycle clubs, and they were a bit shocking. The first one, like, there were bits that I was really liking, and then something would happen, I was like, oh, I don't like this. They weren't my sort of romance read, like my typical normal romance read. They made a really nice change, and something in them kept me reading. I can't put my finger on what it was, because half the time I wasn't entirely sure I was loving it, but something kept me reading. And the second book, Unbeautifully, out of the 3, was my favourite. But I don't know if I would continue with the series from where I have now left off. Like, there were bits that I really loved in the series, but more so how the guys treat women, I wasn't okay with for most of the book, or books I should say. The next book that I read I absolutely loved, and it was probably my favourite book of the entire month, and that's Hero by Samantha Young. Oops, I've turned Siri on. Let's turn that off. Yes, my absolute favourite book of the month. It's a contemporary adult sort of romance read. Samantha Young is the author of the On Dublin Street series, which I've read a couple of and I have mentioned on my channel, which I liked but didn't love. Loved this. It's a standalone romance novel. It's about a woman called Alexa and a man called Kane, and they meet on the set of a photo shoot. She is the photographer's assistant and he is the subject, and they cause a massive scene because Alexa's family did something terrible to Kane's family, so he basically gets her fired. She then goes to see him and says, look, can you try and get me my job back? And he ends up giving her a job, and they have this chemistry between them, but it's sort of love, hate, and banter and back and forth, and it all goes from there. Something about it, I just absolutely loved it. I read it in like a day. I couldn't put it down, and I think I'm going to buy a physical copy of it because I loved it so much. I definitely want to reread it in the future. The next book that I read, I was looking at reviews of the books by Madeline Sheehan, the what was it? Undeniable, Unbeautifully, and Unattainable. I was looking at reviews, and a few people said, look, read this author instead. If you like the sort of setting, but you didn't like this about it, or you didn't like that about it, try these. So I downloaded the first book, and it's It Ain't Me, Babe by Tilly Cole, and it's book 1 in the Hades Hangman. Loved this one. I will definitely be continuing on with this series and not the Madeline Sheehan ones, just because this series for me was so much better. The MC is still tough, still kick-ass, still deadly, but just the whole approach to it was just much better. I just fell in love with the characters much more. I liked them much more, let alone loved them. I just liked them more. And in this one, a young woman called May is running away from what is essentially a religious cult compound, and she's running and she's injured and she ends up passing out, and this motorcycle club find her, and when the leader Styx actually sees who this woman is, he met her as a child. She was behind the wall of the compound, and he's not been able to forget about her since. And oh my god, it was just brilliant. Highly recommend this one. Absolutely loved it. Couldn't put it down. I think I read this one in a day, or a day and a half, something like that. Read it in a really short amount of time, and I loved it so much that I immediately went on to book 2, which is Heart Recaptured. Looks like this. And this is about May's sister, who they get out of the compound, and she's finding it hard to adjust to life on the outside. She very much wants to go back, but there may be someone that changes her mind. Oh my god. Still dark, still not, well, kind of gruesome, but graphic. Very graphic. Some of the things that happen to the girls in this book, not so much from the MC, but from the actual religious cult side of it, is quite disturbing. But I really enjoy this, and I cannot wait for the next book. It's killing me that there was nothing to read after this. I really wanted this to just carry on. Really loved that. The next one that I read was Prick by Sabrina Page. This one kept popping up on my Goodreads with people reading it as sort of a new adult novel. So I downloaded it, and I wasn't overly impressed. Oh, I realised that I've not been giving you ratings for much of anything, really. The books by Madeline Sheehan I would give sort of 3 out of 5. Hero, Samantha Young, 5 out of 5. The books by Tilly Cole, 5 out of 5. So yeah, back to Prick. I think the name really is just a bit of a gimmick. It's just to get people go, oh, look at the name of that book and read it. I didn't think that was entirely necessary. It's quite a short book. I think I read this one in about a day, and it's about this young girl. I can't actually remember her name or his name, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. And she's a very good conservative girl, and she decides that she's going to lose her virginity, so she chooses basically the school's man whore one night, and that's it. And then it finds out that her dad is going to be marrying his mum, and they're sort of thrown together. It was mostly just sex. Like, if there had been sort of more of a plot to it, you didn't really get to know the characters either. It was mostly just page after page of them having sex, so I didn't really appreciate that, so I gave it 2 out of 5. And then the last book that I read in February was one of my most anticipated releases, and that's The Liar by Nora Roberts. I enjoyed this one, But I keep hoping that the sort of romantic thrillers that are coming out for her will be as good as Whiskey Beach. But so far, nothing has matched my expectations of how much I loved Whiskey Beach. That came out, I think, 2 years ago now, and nothing has quite matched it. Since then, I've read The Witness and obviously now The Liar. I haven't read The Collector, which I might read soon. But this one, oh god, I can't remember her name. Oh god, that's so bad. Shelby, remembered. Her husband has just died, and she thought that they were well off. But it all turns out that he was basically a fraud. He was a liar. She has all this debt that she now has to pay off, and she basically has to sell their big house to give all the money to these creditors. And it turns out that not only was he a liar, he could have been something a bit more sinister. He could have been a thief and a murderer. So she has to pay off all of his debt. So she moves herself and her young daughter home with her family while she's trying to obviously deal with this crippling debt. She meets a man called Griffin, but strange things start happening. People are following her, people are turning up dead. I knew very early on, I sussed what was happening. It wasn't really a big surprise, the big conclusion, but I still think it was enjoyable, and I really did love Shelby. I thought she was a really, really great character. I loved her little daughter, Callie. She was adorable, and Griffin was also really, really sweet. So it was really good. I really enjoyed it, but it wasn't as good as Whiskey Beach, which remains my favourite Nora Roberts book. So that's everything that I read in February. I'm now going to try and get this video actually uploaded, which I'm sure will be fun. So that's everything. I will see you guys soon. Happy reading.